All right, good morning, students. Okay, this is the video. I'm going to attempt to summarize all the chapters rather quickly because I know some of these chapters have been covered a long time ago and you might not have remembered some of the points. And at the same time, I'm also going to show you some of the sample factor essay question, which is the last question of your SS essay paper. So this is the part which you can actually study and you need to maybe memorize some things. Okay, for the rest of it, it's pretty much your source-based case studies, and as well as your brainstorming essay. Okay, so this is the last part of the test, and I hope I thank you all for watching this video because it shows at least you are determined to do something. All right. So without further ado, let me start to go through each of these chapters one by one. All right. All right. So the first chapter we're going to cover is about citizenship. So chapter 1, 2, 3 are what we call the themes on citizenship and governance. So I'm going to cover these three chapters. First chapter is about what does it mean to be a citizen of my country. All right. Okay, so the first thing you must know, okay, if I said there are three big factors in this chapter. Okay, we have legal status, we have identity, and we have participation in public affairs. So later on, if you see some sample question, they may ask you, which is more important for being a citizen? Is it legal status or is it identity? Is it identity or is it participation in public affairs? So right on the get-go, these are the three big factors you should know in this chapter, and you should also know roughly what they mean. Okay, so now I'm going to expand on my mind a bit and tell you what each of the factor can mean. Okay. Okay, so for legal status, okay, you will notice that it involves becoming a citizen, so you are considered a citizen by law. Okay, and you can become a citizen by either being born into the country, by marrying to someone who is already a citizen, or maybe you can live long enough in the country, you naturalize into becoming a citizen, or maybe you're just the son and daughter of a citizen, so you legally, by law, you're considered a citizen. Okay, so what does it mean to be a citizen? It means you have certain responsibilities, you also mean you have certain rights. So one example of legal status responsibilities, obviously we know NS. Okay, and we also know that citizens, legal citizens have certain benefits that non-citizens have. So for example, you have the right to be protected. This means maybe the government may protect you from very difficult times. So for example, we learned that in COVID, maybe citizens, they may get special benefits. For example, they may get also financial assistance. And we all know this one you should know quite well because citizens, you pay a much lower school fee than say PR and foreigners. You also maybe get freedom. Okay, you get the freedom to maybe travel out of the country, travel to come into the country. So these are certain benefits and responsibilities. And all of this helps you to feel like a citizen because you get things that other people do not get to enjoy. All right, I know some of you might think, okay, NS is not really something enjoyable. Okay, but again, it's responsibility is also in a way opportunity that's reserved for some group of people. So that can help you to feel like a citizen. Okay, being a citizen means you have certain rights, you have certain responsibilities. You have to do it because that's the way it is. By law, you have to do it. All right. Okay, and obviously obey the laws. This one obviously is not just limited to citizens. All right, another way you can feel like a citizen is because of identity. So you can imagine maybe in Singapore, we have some people who are citizens, Singaporeans. Maybe we have people who are not really Singaporeans. Let's say they are from Malaysia or maybe from some other far away place, but they live here long enough. Maybe they are PRs. Okay, for example, say an American PR living in Singapore he was born. Okay, he might grow up having certain common practices. So for example, in Singapore, what are some of the common practices that people may go through? Maybe you can think about, okay, they go through school together, maybe they celebrate festivals together, okay, or they share certain religion together, or maybe they share certain values together. So all of this can make them feel like they are a citizen. although they are technically, legally not a citizen. But my example, American who has been living in Singapore for all his life, he may feel like he's a citizen, okay, just because he has shared all these practices together with the other people in Singapore. Okay, for example, another example, food haven, maybe they grow up eating the same kind of food. They feel like they are no different from Singapore citizens because they enjoy a certain kind of food, your hawker food and so on. So they may feel like they are a citizen. And that is also one idea of what it means to be a citizen, having a sense of identity, similar values, similar culture that can make you feel like a citizen. So by now you should know that citizen is not just one thing. Yes, normally we'll consider it as a legal status, but even there are people who may feel they are Singaporean, even though they are technically, legally not a Singaporean. Okay, and last but not least, we citizens also involve participating in public affairs. So being a citizen means, not staying at home, being part of a bigger community. So sometimes one example you can learn about is volunteering. So I go back to my earlier example. You can have someone who's not born in Singapore, but maybe he lived in Singapore, he have a Singapore identity, but he also maybe participate in public affairs. Maybe he volunteers, maybe he joins a local group, maybe he wants to take part in community events, okay, like say National Day or something. So by being involved in public affairs, or maybe they are discussing like, what should be built in the town. Okay, some people, if you stay in a town, you can voice your opinion on what your town should look like. Some people, they stay in a private estate, they can also voice their opinion and make a say on what their town, their estate should look like. So by participating in public affair is also what can make you feel like a citizen. Okay, sorry, my doodle is a bit messy, but I just want to emphasize my points. But the slide I have shared with you, you can use that to study and revise. Okay, so being a citizen is not just being a citizen by law. It also involves a certain sense of identity and culture. It also means being active in public affairs. Okay, so maybe a sample question may ask you, which of these three things, which is more important do you think as a citizen? So you have to compare, you have to explain, okay, what does it mean to be a legal status? What does it mean to be identity? So these are the three big concepts of being a citizen. All right. Chapter 2. Okay, chapter 2, we have a few parts. In part 1, we're going to learn about what are some challenges in deciding what is good for society. So that means in a society that is not going to be easy to make decisions that everyone is going to be happy with. So we're going to see what are the big challenges, the factors that you should know that makes things very challenging. Okay, so factor 1, I shall go through very quickly this one. Okay, so you should see from the get-go, there are 3 big challenges that you should know of. These are the big concepts of this chapter, which means the essay question can also be set based on these 3 factors. Maybe I can ask you, between differing needs and interests and unequal sharing of costs, which is a greater challenge in deciding what is good for society. So you need to know what these factors means. Okay, so now I'm going to briefly cover what does it mean. Different needs and interests is quite straightforward. It basically means it's a challenge because people, if you are from different group, you have different things you need. Okay, so as some people, they need transport system. Some people need private transport. Some people want public transport. Some people want a better road network, depending on your background. Okay, some people, they want things that other people may not necessarily need. Okay, so maybe let's give an example. Maybe people from a lower financial background, they may want financial support, they may want more public support. But maybe people in more well-to-do families, maybe they think, I don't need the government to provide all these things. Maybe I want lower taxes. I want the government to not disturb me and let me do my own thing. So they may have different needs, different interests. Some people are very interested in the environment. Some people don't care about the environment. Okay, so different people have different things that what they think is important to them. All right. Now, the other challenge is priority. This point number 2 is a little bit similar to point number 1, but basically you can see some people, they think public housing is important. Some people job security is important. Some people think safe and secure environment is important. Some people think they are honest government is important. So people have different ideas on what the government should be doing. Okay, so for example, our older generation, they may think the government should spend more on healthcare. Whereas the younger generation or young parents, they may think the government should spend more in education. So basically they have kind of a different priority. Okay, so you can see it's actually a bit similar, these two factors. Okay, but the different one, the third factor, which is unequal sharing of cost, what does that mean? Unequal sharing of cost means different people, they face different levels of burden. So one example we always like to give is the NIMBY syndrome, not in my backyard syndrome. For example, sometimes we need to build public facilities. For example, I need to build an expressway. I need to build a house to house the foreign worker dormitory. Everyone thinks, yes, we must have expressway, we must have an airport, we must have a housing for workers dormitory, but they don't want it to be built near their place. So let's use the example of airport. Or if I want, everyone agrees that maybe Singapore must have an airport, but what if I tell you I'm going to build an airport beside your place? Will you want that? Most people will say, no, I don't want. Build an airport somewhere further away. Go and disturb other people. Don't go and disturb me. Okay, so same things. Foreign worker dormitory is one that's quite common in Singapore. Last time, they want a place for the foreign workers to live in, but a lot of the Singaporeans, they don't feel comfortable when the foreign workers live near their neighborhood because they are afraid. Are they? I'm be very honest, sometimes are they dirty? Will they commit crimes? Will they disturb my neighborhood? Will they make a lot of noise? Some people will think that, you know what? It's not fair for me. It's unequal cost for me. Why must I bear the cost of having them stay near me? Why not let them stay near other people and let them bear the cost? So some people think that, basically whatever the government does, wherever the government wants to build something, okay, some people will face more cost than others. And because of that, they will complain and complain and complain. And this makes it very difficult for the government to decide what to do eventually. So for example, where do I build a foreign workers dormitory? Wherever you choose, someone is going to be unhappy and complain a lot to you. So it's very difficult to make decisions. Okay, and all this happens because the country have limited land. So this is not really a factor, but it underlines all three. If my country has unlimited land, unlimited resources, and unlimited money, I can fulfill everyone's desire. I won't have any of these complaints at all. Okay, so imagine if I'm a land, I'm unlimited oil, unlimited gold. I can give a lot of people, everyone a lot of money. I have endless land. I can build everything. These problems wouldn't exist. But reality is, the world, every country, we all have limits on land resources. We cannot meet everyone's desires. So that's why it's very challenging to decide what is good for society. And these are the three big challenges. And a sample essay question may ask you which one is more challenging. So you must know what each point is and how it makes it challenging to decide what is good for society. Okay. Chapter 2, now we continue. Okay, we are still on deciding what is good for society, but we're gonna very quickly go through how the government manage conflicting demands. Okay, I will just unpack everything this first. Okay, so the concepts above, usually I won't say that they are used in an essay. It's quite rare. For example, we have difficulty manage conflicting demands. That means different people want different things because of the idea of trade-off. Sometimes if you want one thing, there's a benefit, but there's also a cost. That's what I mean by trade-off. There's benefit, there's always a cost. So you always have to decide how you balance the benefit with the cost. Okay, and the government, okay, because it's so difficult to make decisions, usually we leave it to three groups of people in the government to make the decision. We have the legislature, which is what we know as the MPs, your members of parliament. They represent district in the country. So for example, we have MP for Aljunied GRC, we have MP for Hougang, we have MP for East Coast GRC, we have MP for Sengkang, and so on. So they represent the people who live in the area, and because they are our representative, they all will come together and they'll decide on our behalf what laws should be passed. Okay. On the other hand, we also have the executive. The executive, they are a smaller group than the legislature. So some of the MPs, they will join the government and become ministers. So they run our day-to-day ministry. So for example, our Minister of Education is in charge of everything related to education, your schools and so on. So he became a MP, then he became elected to become a minister. He got selected to become a minister, and day to day they'll decide what is our government policy, like what should we do about education, what should we do for defense, okay, what should we do for healthcare. They meet on a very regular basis to decide. Okay, the people who are in the legislature, they check on the executive. So they are like a bigger committee, and the executive is like the exco, a smaller committee that propose things, that implement things, move things. Okay, as the legislature will once in a while come and check and make sure the executive is doing a good job. Okay, last but not least, we have a judiciary. Judiciary, they are the judges. Basically, they are not voted by the people, but basically their job is, sometimes some people, they end up breaking the law. Okay, the judges will decide, okay, how should we judge the people who have broken the law. Okay, so it is also a decision making, because as a judge you have to decide, do I sentence this person to prison, do I give him a fine, do I sentence him to death? Very difficult decision, because let's say someone on death penalty because he smuggled drugs. It's a very difficult decision, because on the one hand there will be people who wants maybe the drug trafficker to live because they don't want him to die. This could be the drug trafficker's immediate family. It could be people who oppose the death penalty. But on the other hand, we have people who maybe wants the death penalty. So it's also a very difficult decision that the judges have to make. And especially so because these things directly affect our life also, especially if you get into a brush with the law. Okay. So another way, okay, so now we look at the second part, okay, of this mind map. Another way is we have to shape governance. We have to make decisions by using certain ideas. That means sometimes when we have a very difficult decision to make, what values do you fall back on to make your decision? Okay, and this is where maybe a sample essay question may be quite common. For example, they may ask you, which idea of shaping governance is more important? Is it having good leadership is more important, or is it practicing meritocracy is more important? Is it providing a stake for everyone more important, or is it anticipating change and relevance? So you must know these four factors very well. Okay, and when I say very well, I just need you to roughly know what they mean, and you are able to say in your own words and have some examples. So first idea, having good leadership, very simple. Basically means your leaders in your government, they are very honest, they are very capable. It also means they are always able to do what is right and not what is popular. So for example, if I want to lock down people during COVID, nobody likes a lockdown because life is very difficult. But maybe sometimes the government must have the courage to say, people don't like it, but we have to do it because it benefits everyone in the end. Okay, and you must not be corruptible. You have good character. Maybe you don't take bribes. You are law-abiding yourself. You are a good role model. Okay, and you make decisions that are good for the country. Okay, good for the country, not just good for the citizens. Okay, good for the country. Okay, another way you can help you to make difficult decisions is to anticipate change and stay relevant. So this means that you must know what can happen in the future, and you must prepare yourself to cope with it. Okay, you make decisions that benefit citizens in the future. So for example, the very common example that we talk about in Singapore is building this IR, the integrated resort in Marina Bay Sands, in Resorts World Sentosa. When they were first thought of it a long time ago, nobody liked it because they say you encourage gambling, but the government decided between having the risk of people gambling and having our economy, our tourism slow down, they decided it's better to be forward looking, and in the end they decided, okay, we can the IR should be built. Another example you can talk about maybe is electric cars. Nowadays, people are very worried, in the future, will there be petrol cars, or will we have to rely on electric cars? So although now we have cars that run on petrol very well, petrol stations are everywhere, but the government has the foresight say in 2050 petrol is going to run out or become very expensive. So we must start preparing people to use electric cars. So the government, maybe they now they are going to basically ban petrol cars from being sold from 2030 onwards. Maybe now they are also investing in public transport so that people next time don't need to drive. Maybe they are building new cycling lanes so that people can cycle instead of driving cars next time. So they are having the foresight to stay ahead of what's going to happen. All right. Third idea, providing a stake for everyone, basically means you let everyone feel valued. Okay, everyone feel valued, gives everyone something important. Okay, make them feel like they are a valuable member of the community. So one example is having what we call this our Singapore conversation. I don't know whether you can see this, OSC. Basically, this is an example in 2013 when the government said, you know what, we want everyone's citizen to feel like they can actually decide their country's future. So they went around the country talking to people, finding out their views on education, on healthcare, and everything basically, and what they want Singapore to be. So everyone feels like they're listened to, they love being listened to, and it helps the government to make decisions, because when you know what the citizens want, you hopefully able to make the best decisions. You don't want to make decisions that end up the citizens, nobody wanted it anyway, and you wasted your time and resources. Okay. Another way, you make decisions to make sure whatever you do, you make sure people have a stake in the country. So one of the ways is through owning houses. All right. So maybe this one applies more in terms of housing. So the government decided that, okay, in terms of our housing policy, we want to make sure that everyone gets a best chance to own their own home. Okay, and so that they will have a sense of belonging. Okay, so sometimes maybe the government is decided, okay, should we cut down the number of okay, so recently there are a lot of people in Singapore that are struggling to buy houses, okay, because they are basically not enough space. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Let's say I have a in Tengah, right? In Tengah, somewhere near Jurong today, we have a big jungle. Okay, but the government is deciding, okay, I can either A, save this jungle and make the environment better, the people who love the environment better, or B, I cut down this jungle and build more housing estates so that people have the chance to own homes. So between these very difficult decisions of saving the trees and building new houses, if I use the idea of providing a stake for everyone to make my decision, I may eventually decide, okay, sorry, the trees must go, I must build a new housing estate. So this is one way the government may, this is how I understand how the Singapore makes decisions when it comes to, whether saving the environment and building new facilities for people to stay and own. All right. So this is example, housing. All right. Last but not least, the idea to shape government is meritocracy. Meritocracy basically means if you put in effort, if you do well, you will be rewarded. Okay, regardless of your background. So EduSave scholarships, merit bursary schemes, we want to make sure that whatever we choose to do, we make sure people are rewarded fairly. Okay, so there's a bit of fairness, okay, that we want to use to make decisions. Okay, so maybe they may ask you, is it more important to practice meritocracy or providing a stake for everyone? Which one is more important? Then if you don't know which one is more important, it doesn't matter. But at the very least, you must be able to explain what each of the four values, what do they mean, okay, and give examples. All right. Okay, chapter 3. Okay, I'm reaching the last part of issue 1. Then I will take a break in the video and break the video into 3 parts based on issue. So chapter 3, we are talking about how can we are talking about what can citizens do now. Just now in chapter 2, we see what does the government do, how the government manage conflicting demands, how the government solve the daily issues. Now we are looking at how can we citizens do to contribute and make society a better place. All right. So the first thing, okay. Oh, I'm mistaken. So I still have one part on the government. Yeah, we includes the government apparently. Okay, so this is quite a big mind map, but basically at the center is the role of government. You must know that the government have 4 main roles. Number 1, we maintain our security. Number 2, we ensure that there's justice. Number 3, we provide goods and services, and number 4, we safeguard the interest. So sample essay question, they may ask you, which of these 4 roles is the most important? Is it maintaining security, or is it providing goods and services? Obviously, there's no one answer for this, but like I mentioned, when they ask you which of the 2 factors are more important, comparing it is not so important, but you must be able to explain to me what each of the factor mean. So for example, you must be able to say, okay, maintaining internal order and security is very important. Internal order security means that, okay, I have my police, I have my civil defense, I make sure people are safe from crime, safe from fires. I have central narcotics bureau to make sure people are safe away from the harmful effects of drugs. Okay, I also have defense because I want to make sure Singapore is safe from other countries. Okay, I practice deterrence. That means I make sure people don't dare to attack us. To maintain good security, I also need to make sure I'm on good relations with other people. So I have my Ministry of Foreign Affairs to engage in diplomacy. Okay. Sometimes the essay question can even be very narrow. So for example, I may even ask you, which of these 2 methods is the most important to maintain security? Is it A, deterrence, or is it B, diplomacy? So this is a very specific, narrow essay question. So you must be able to tell me a lot more. What does it mean to be deterrent? So tell me a paragraph on what does Singapore do to defend ourselves, to scare away our neighbors, make sure they don't invade us. You must also be able to tell me what is diplomacy all about and give me examples of how the government has cultivated good relationships with other countries. Okay, so an essay question is not always based on these 3 big factors in the chapter. They can even be something quite specific and narrow. So you need to pay attention to how these things are branching out. Okay, another example, internal external security. Maybe I can ask you, is internal security more important or external security more important? It might even be a possibility. Okay, how it branches out. Okay, let's go to our big factor number 2. Government has to ensure justice, make sure that people are protected by the law, people follow the law. Okay, so for example, our courts, okay, we have this example of a family court. If a family member gets abused, even your family members can be charged by court. Okay, so if your nobody is above the law, so this government make sure that everyone is protected, okay, as a person living in Singapore. Okay, number 3, very important, the government must provide goods and services for the public, and sometimes this means you maybe want to subsidize certain goods. For example, example of public transport, you see LRT here, MRT, taxi stand. Okay, the government have to do and spend money to make all these things happen, because nobody will have the money to build these big projects. So the government may need to step in to provide. Water, nobody is selling water to us. Yes, PUB is selling water, but it's a public agency. Okay, there's no private water company here, at least in Singapore. And you have to make sure that water is cheap and available to everyone, so that everyone has a good well-being. Can you imagine water being so expensive? And no, people have to, start saving water, rationing water, and worse than not having water to drink. Okay, so the government has to do all this to provide goods and services. And how is it good for society? Because when you have all these good things, your standard of living definitely can improve, because these are important, essential goods and services. Without it, your life would be very difficult. Okay, so all these 4 factors are telling you how your big society become better. Without a defense, without security, life obviously is not good for society, because you will feel very unsafe. Without justice, it's also not good for society, because people can break the law, because nobody will follow the law, because there's no justice. If there's no goods and services, it's not good for society, because people don't have important goods and services for their living. If I don't have, last but not least, if I don't have this thing called safeguarding the interest, if I don't have laws to make sure people have a sense of security, the security here doesn't mean your defense security. It means like your life is secure, your income is secure, you have a safe, you feel a sense of safety at work. So it's quite generic. So for example, CPF, we want to make sure people have financial security. They will be able to retire with some money left. Okay, so without all these things, without the government protecting, having CPF, it's not good for society, because maybe people may not save enough money, and people may end up very poor when they are in their very old age. Okay, so all these four roles of the government is considered making it good for the society. Okay, the government's own way of contributing to the good of society. Okay, all right, so now let's look at the role of citizens. So again, I'm going to show you the big factor first. Okay. Okay, so this is a very big map, but at the center, this is the center. What can citizens do? So the big factor is citizen can contribute to society's needs directly, or if you are a citizen, you don't want to do it directly, you can influence and ask the government to do things that will benefit society. So again, essay example, they may ask you, which is more important, contributing to the needs of society or influencing government decisions? And you must be able to explain what each of the factor mean. And if you have the time, sure, go and decide which is better. There's no right or wrong answer. Okay, so let me go through with number one, contributing needs of society. Contributing needs to society basically means sometimes society there is a need. Maybe the country is very dirty. The country needs people to take care of old people, needs people to take care of the environment. Okay, so there are sometimes society needs certain things and we contribute to it directly. So we can either maybe let individuals, we can let groups do it. So for example, if the country is very dirty, you can, as a raw individual, go and volunteer your time, go and maybe pick up litter. So the textbook example that they mentioned is this litter at a time. So people maybe they organize their they go up and do things to make the society better. You go and pick litter. Okay, this one happened in our school before. Or you can join a group and volunteer more on the long term, or to volunteer a group to make society better. So an example, okay, SG haze rescue. Okay, when Singapore experienced a lot of haze, or you can even say when Singapore had a lot of COVID, people came together to make masks. In the case of COVID, there are people who come together to make masks, distribute hand sanitizer. Okay, they can make society better because they provide a certain service that is considered important. Or there are also long-term formal groups. Okay, that means they are like an organization that has been around for a long time, and they usually they try to service a certain group of members of the community. So for example, Mercy Relief, okay, Minds take care of the people a lot with intellectual disability. For example, we have say SPCA. SPCA, we all know what it is, Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. They take care of the maybe animal welfare, animal rights in Singapore. They try and do things to help. Okay, you have your own examples. Please use your own examples that you can relate to. So whether you are individual, formal group or informal group, they all provide an important service because they do something good that helps a certain group in society. Okay, they help a group, okay, usually, or they do something good and it's good for society. Okay, because these people, maybe the animals, they get better taken care of, people with intellectual disability get taken care of. If you do litter picking, our environment is nicer, everyone feels more pleasant living in the place. So it's good for society, good for the country. Okay, another way you can do it, now we're looking at factor 2 here, okay, is we can ask the government to do above all these things. So maybe as a citizen, okay, I can take part in dialogues. Okay, take part in dialogues, like for example, just like I mentioned OSC, I share the government what the government should be doing. Or there's this agency called REACH. Okay, basically you can write email, you can fill out a form and tell the government, oh, I think there's this problem needs to be fixed. Or you go to the political leaders. Obviously it's not just Facebook nowadays, you got Instagram, you got TikTok, or maybe not TikTok, but Facebook, Instagram, you can give feedback, try to reach out to your leaders, your MP, to tell them exactly what is a problem. Maybe there's a certain problem in your estate, maybe the dustbin never clear or what. You want to feedback to them. As an individual, you can influence the government to do something and fix those problems. And when you do this, it's good for society because you are trying to make Singapore a better place, you make the society a better place, and other people can benefit from you giving feedback. Okay, it's like when you give feedback, you do survey on how to make SGS better. It's a good for the school because you can really make the school better. You can influence the principals, the decisions to make the school better. Okay, If you don't want to do it by yourself, you can join, like how you say, join a formal group, okay? And you can influence the government. Okay, so for example, just now I mentioned, let's say SPCA. If I join SPCA, I love animals a lot. I can join the government. I can join SPCA. SPCA can influence the government's decision with regards to animals. Say, let's say government one day decide, okay, I want to ban dogs. Okay, nobody can adopt dogs in HDB estates anymore because dogs are too noisy. But SPCA may think, oh, that's not fair because many owners, they have to give out their dogs, or the dogs who have no home, they will have no chance to get adopted. So SPCA maybe can pressure the government to say, hey, don't do this, you are wrong. Okay, another example, a real example this time, okay, we have this organization called HOME, Humanitarian Organization for Migrant Economies, or if you want something easier, remember TWC2, Transient Workers Count 2. Transient means they are migrant workers. So these agencies, they are very interested in making the life of foreign migrant workers better. So they have actually influenced the government to, treat or come up with laws to treat the migrant workers better. So for example, they try to influence the government to give migrant workers more day off. So if I remember correctly, your maids, your domestic workers, okay, in the past, there's no guaranteed day off, but nowadays, I think the domestic workers, they get at least the opportunity to take a day off. Okay, of course, they may still choose to work and be paid for it, but they at least have the option to get a day off now. Okay, so these organizations, they help to influence the government to do what is right. And it is good for society because migrant workers are part of our society also. So when they are good, we say it's good for society also. All right. So to wrap up, okay, I'm going to show you a list of sample essay questions from chapter 1 to 3, or what we call issue 1. Okay, so do you think legal status is more important than national identity in shaping citizenship? Okay, so maybe they ask you to pick one factor. Which one is more important in making you feel like a citizen, feel like a special group of people? Maybe they might ask you, do you think different needs and interests is a greater challenge, or is differing priority a greater challenge? What does different needs and interests mean? What does different priorities mean? And which one is a greater challenge? Okay. I'm going to underline the factor and squiggly line the focus. Do you think unequal sharing of costs, factor 1, is it a greater challenge, or is different needs and interests a greater challenge? So one paragraph for unequal costs, one paragraph on needs and interests. Explain to me how is it a challenge, not even a greater, how is it a challenge in deciding what is good for society? Okay, do you think is good leadership more important, or is practicing meritocracy more important? For what? For ensuring good governance. So you must write one paragraph. How does good leadership ensure good governance? How does meritocracy ensure good governance? Okay. Anticipating change and stay relevant, is it more important, or is providing stake for everyone more important to sustain its development? So you must know, obviously, what are these two factors. Obviously, you also need to know what does this focus mean, what does sustaining development, so you can link it to the factor. Okay. Do you think government's role or maintaining internal external order is more important than justice? So which one is important? So how is maintaining security, internal and external order important? How is justice important? Then you have time, then you compare in your third paragraph. Okay. I'm repeating a bit here because I kind of covered this just now. Okay, so is the role of providing goods and services, or is it safeguarding interest citizens? Which one is important? How are they important? Okay, so one factor, two factor, how is it important? Explain. Okay, do you think the government has more important role to play than, okay, so now we have a comparison of different. Do we think government, factor 1, or do you think organized groups are more important to meet the needs of Singaporeans? So you need to write one paragraph on how the government meets the needs of Singaporeans. You write one paragraph how the organized groups meet the needs of Singaporeans. Okay, do you think contributing to the needs of society, which is important, that influencing government decision? Is it more important for citizens to help out people directly, or is it more important to ask governments to try and fix the situation? Okay, so citizens, you help out directly, you can be very fast. but you ask government decision is also important because government have a lot of resources, a lot of manpower. Okay, is contributing to the needs of society more important or strengthening people's sense of belonging? So factor one, contributing to the needs of society, sense of belonging. Which one is? How are they important? Okay, so one paragraph. So these are many. Of course, there are a lot of sample essay questions that the way it can be phrased, but basically I'm trying to show you from this page that it's always two factors. Okay, and how can we link it to the focus? How can we link it to the question focus? Okay, so two paragraphs, each paragraph telling me how it explains, how it links to the focus. Okay, all right, so this is part one. Okay, in the next video I'll do the videos for the remaining chapters. Okay, video 2 will be on diversity, video 3 will be on globalization. Okay, I'm gonna end here and I will see you in the next video.